Atlanta, and I grew up in this business. We have 5 mobile home parks here, and we are selling 2. Hopefully they'll close on Monday. So that leaves us with 3 more. To be the moderator for this, because I do have a little bit of experience now with selling and buying and talking to brokers. Or maybe no one else would volunteer to moderate this, but you guys have been for a little bit of time. The 4 panelists up here were chosen because of their expertise, and they are going to start by answering 4 questions that we understood from previous SECO events that people wanted to hear. People wanted answers to these questions. So they're going to speak for 3 to 5 minutes, and they're going to answer each one of these questions, and we can have a question and answer after this. So don't think that once they answer the question that you can't ask them anymore about it. So this after 3 to 5 minutes, I'll stop you.
Great.
And then we'll move on to James. So I'll introduce each of you as you start. So this is Max Baker. Max is a commercial real estate broker with Lee & Associates here in Atlanta, specializing in purchasing and selling mobile home communities in the Southeast. His family has been involved with mobile home parks for more than 10 years, and he has been part of the management, rehabilitation, and disposing of mobile home parks since his family purchased their first park more than a decade ago. Max works primarily in Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, North Carolina, and South Carolina, and plans to expand into Mississippi, West Virginia, and Virginia. Max?
Yes.
All yours.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for the intro, David. What geographic focus and what size of deals have I done in the last 24 months? That's the first question. So he said that I've done those states. Y'all know that. I've done about 10 deals in the last 12 months. Last year, we grossed right around 20 million in transactions, give or take. We do a lot of, sometimes we source debt for people generally, but we focus primarily on getting listings in secondary, tertiary markets. I don't really go into the primary because a lot of these guys are chasing the big fish. I'm kind of a medium to lower, just below institutional size communities. That's typically what I go for. What do buyers want in 2016, and has this changed in the last 24 months? I'd say the biggest thing that the buyers have seen change that I've seen is really just banking. Banking has been the biggest variable that controls pricing, because kind of my pitch to a lot of sellers is it really doesn't matter what I think it's worth or what you think it's worth, it's what it'll appraise at. And that's where I add the most value, because we've researched and found every single mobile home park in Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, North and South Carolina. So every year we go through and we see who the active buyers are. So, I mean, I might be speaking for myself here, but I feel like I'm the only one up here that has actually researched and found all those parks and monitors the sales every year. You can't find it on CoStar because...
We have 2.
Oh, you have?
Yeah,
well, you guys are awesome. I was trying to go leg up on you.
We're not really working those markets. So
Yeah,
I'm not Florida.
Yeah, you're in Florida. Yeah, you're a Florida guy. So, but in general, like when we get under contract, that's where I add the most value. Essentially, I have all the comps. I've got sales comps, I've got rent comps. So anytime y'all have a deal that's kind of having a little issue because of appraisal, just give me a call, and like I said, I can help you out with that. Next thing
Can everyone
is...
hear? Can everyone hear okay?
Speak up a little bit. Is that better?
Bad posture.
Yeah, okay, bad posture. Can you give me a few ways to improve marketability? The biggest thing that I see with park owners is the entrance is always the biggest variable a lot of people have with communities. And the signage is a big deal. Make sure you have your phone number on the sign. Make sure you have an email address on the sign, because as technology improves, a lot more of people that are living in these communities are using their cell phone. They don't have a land phone. They don't really believe in land phones. It's typically that. Even having maybe a MasterCard Visa logo on your sign to show that you all accept that. It's been my experience that people don't typically pay you with that, but when they get behind on their rent, they come to run. I mean, David would know more than I would, but they come run to you with a credit card to pay off their back rent or whatnot. So that's one thing. The other thing is make sure you have a website. The website is a big variable. A lot of park owners, I'd say about 70% of the park owners I meet don't have a website. So nobody knows you exist. And a lot of times, like even in Alabama, like I've had to go through Google and drop pins and locate park owners that way and cold call them because there's nothing on the internet that you can find that has their information on. Any tips for being a successful buyer of a community amid all the other buyers today, competitive buying environment? As a broker, the best thing you can do is let your broker sell your deals if you want to see off-market deals. They are bombarded. I mean, I do my best to call everybody back. I'm pretty good, but most of the time I get about 100 calls a week of new buyers coming in. They want to buy city water and sewer, lot rent deals, 100% full. You get a lot of guys that call looking for a 10 cap on lot rental deals, and those are just so difficult to find. Maybe they're easier where y'all are at.
Not a 10 cap.
Yeah, but I mean, I get calls like that all the time. So if y'all are a little bit more flexible with how you buy deals, if you come and say, look, Mr. Broker, I've got my debt lined up, here's my down payment, here's my proof of funds, this is my experience. If you go meet him face to face, they'll take you a little bit more seriously. It's just like any other relationship, you can't be a pen pal the entire time. It's good to go meet and greet people, shake hands and kiss babies kind of thing. You got to do the same thing with your brokers. And like I said, if you want to see off-market deals, you got to probably throw them a few bones. Say, look, help me sell this deal. I'll give you the exclusive. You've given me a few deals here and there. So let's see what we can do. And I think that's the best way to help on the buy side. So is that it?
Okay,
Great.
All right, Josh.
This is James Truck. Would you guys read the questions a little louder so they know what you're answering? James is the founder of Yale, Realty, and Capital Advisors in Miami, Florida. He started his career in the manufactured housing industry shortly after obtaining his real estate license in 2005. And in 2007, made it a full-time focus. With offices in Florida, California, and Illinois, Yale Realty Advisors now serves not only James' home state of Florida, but also the western and midwestern U.S. Yale Capital was founded in 2013 and has financed parks across the entire U.S. from Alaska to Florida.
Thank you as well, David. Happy to be up here with some great brokers, good guys, and I think a lot of us have slightly different focus. So the good news is we're not always directly competing. I do think a match for like he said, he's not trying to go after properties in prime markets and these 4 and 5 star, 4 and 5 cap deals. So a lot of folks I've met here own 30 and 40 site parks off the beaten path, the kind of stuff I would love to own, and that's what obviously his specialty is. Everybody's got their niche, I would think. The first question was, what is the geographical focus and what size deals have you done in the last 24 months? Like David read off, we're based in Florida. I grew up in Florida. I was raised in North Florida and moved to South Florida. Have roots in the Midwest, so I've always liked the Midwest, and so we've got a little presence there as well. And we're hiring a representative in the West Coast. So last 24 months, we've done a lot of RV and manufacturing communities. We've done deals from randomly from Pennsylvania, Illinois, and mostly in Florida though. Deal sizes, I'd say our average deal will be $3 to $5 million. Minimum deal will probably be $1.5 million, and deals as big as $40 and $50 million. On the size range, happy to work on any size above probably $1.5 million. The second question is, what do buyers want in 2016? And has that changed in the last 24 months? I think that with dropping interest rates and more available credit and more loan programs, I'm sure you all heard from my business partner Chris, who runs the capital division. We have more lending options available today than we've had in the last 10 years, possibly even more than we had available to us in some ways before the collapse in 07 and 08. So clearly with that, buyers are paying a little more aggressive prices because they've got better interest rates and better loans available. And there's probably more buyers here than there were 24 months ago. and certainly more than they were 5 or 6 years ago. So just competition itself is driving down the rate of return a buyer will accept. Talking to a lot of folks here, I think most people here like to buy scratch and dent stuff with value. Again, the kind of stuff I would personally buy. So that's one group. Buyers that are looking at, hey, they want vacancy, they want stuff that's got a problem, and they can fix it and get a discount associated with the problem. Personally, we're fortunate, or our practice has been really focused on, clean, higher quality retail deals. So my clients mostly are buying low cap rate, highly competitive stuff between, I'd say the highest cap rate we've dealt with in a long time is a 7 cap outside of an RV park. A steal from an RV park is an 8 cap. So it's a little different market in Florida than maybe is in the Carolinas and in Georgia and all. But we've tended to deal with more the institutional 100, 150 plus site communities, very stable, coupon clipping, buys that a group that owns 10 or 20 or 30 parks already that just is looking to add on and continue to grow their base without a lot of hassles with one property would buy. So honestly, if you have that kind of product, whether it be in Georgia, whether it be in California, whether it be in Alaska, we can sell it. And we've been used by clients anywhere in the nation to consult them and help them get top dollar, not even in our primary markets, just because we have a great database of buyers for that. Institutional buyers, funds, California buyers with deep pockets. The third question was, can you give us a few ways to improve the marketability of your community? I think Kevan here had a really good point. The first impression means a lot. Max's comments on signage are very real. It's like anything when you drive a property. If your tenants are seeing an ugly entrance and run down and you don't care about your property, you're not going to attract tenants that really care about maintaining their places, and it sets a bad standard. So I would say, spend some money on your community, whether you're selling it today or 10 years from now. Fix up your signage, landscaping, roads are a big one. They don't know what it's going to cost them sometimes to fix those roads, so that will be kind of an area that concerns them a little bit. One of the big pet peeves for me in bigger parks is please keep good records. Have a P&L for the last couple of years. If you think you're cheating Uncle Sam, at least the last couple of years when you're going to sell, you're only cheating yourself, because you're going to end up owner financing that park and selling it at a discount. If you kept great immaculate records and had consistent books the last 3 or 4 years with a consistent chart of accounts, it becomes much more bankable, much more appraisable, and much more saleable. Less parking homes is what my clients want, but again, I'm in a different world. So, if you do have parking homes, you do have finance homes. I know that the financing side can do a little more, but especially with finance homes, I would prefer you have a set of books for your financing company and a set of books for your park company. I think that's a really good practice. Break them out so you can keep your park and your lot rent very clean, and then the turnover cost of those homes, the repair cost of those homes is paid out of a separate, park or a home company or a separate finance company. Violations, clearly, if you've got open violations, if your version of DERM or the DEP is on your back because you've got some issue with your treatment plan or something, that's not going to be a good, easy, clean sale. So try to clean those things up. And I think the best way to improve your marketability a lot of times is try to listen to your broker. If your property's been on the market for 3 or 4 years and you've been listed 4 times by 4 different brokers, it may not be the market's problem. You may want to either get realistic, or often you got to go back to the drawing board and spend some time, spend some money, and lease the property up and improve it. You talk to people all the time, your property might be worth $4 or $5 million if you did this and this and this, but today it's only worth 2 because we got to spend a lot of time and energy and effort to get it to where it could be worth 4. Okay. Any tips on being a successful buyer of a community to stand out from all the other buyers in the competitive buying environment? I'd just say have your financing in order. Have your cash. Be clear with your broker on how you're going to finance the property or how much cash you have or capital you have to do the deal. Clearly financeable, good credit, all those things. When you do write a contract, try not to tie it up for too long. Put a relatively, respectable due diligence period, closing period on there that doesn't disrespect your broker or your seller's time. And then just don't tie up properties and play with them and cancel the contract, because you do that a couple times and earn a reputation of somebody that brokers know they're just wasting time with and losing a lot of their momentum with. So happy to answer any questions after, and glad to meet you all.
Thank you, James. Okay, next is Kevan Enger. Kevan is a seasoned multi-housing investment sales broker with Capstone Manufactured Housing in Maitland, Florida. He specializes in the acquisition and disposition of manufactured housing communities and RV parks across the country. Kevin's experience and mobile home product expertise allow him to provide in-depth knowledge regarding local markets and regional trends, asset-specific strategies and advisory services, and the appropriate marketing methods and promotional tools that allow him to service both private equity and institutional investors nationwide. Thank you, Kevan.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm with Capstone. We have 7 offices over 5 states in the Southeast. Let me get to my first question here. What is our geographic focus and what size deals have I worked on in the last 24 months? Because of the multi-locations we have, you have tall guys sitting? Sure. Because of our multiple offices in the Southeast, we've done deals throughout the Southeast, Florida, Midwest. We've closed deals this year in Florida, Tennessee, Indiana, North Carolina. We currently have listings in Kentucky, Missouri, Louisiana, North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida, and we have deals under contract in Ohio, Florida, and Tennessee. So we have a pretty broad reach, which our multiple offices allow us to reach a lot of different markets. So that's great. The type of deals that we work on, I'm in Florida, so we work on off-market, 55 plus large deals. We've sold RV deals this year, all ages, rougher parks, rental parks. So we have a pretty wide strike zone, both on and off market. Our average deal size this year has been $3.5 million, and we finished the year with about between 12 and 14 closings. Next question, what do buyers want in 2016 and what has changed in the last 24 months? What has changed is there's a whole lot more demand and a lot less inventory, seemingly. I think it's really opened up everyone's strike zone. We're seeing people look at things that we didn't before. They're looking at rentals, they're looking at RV parks, they're looking at private utilities. I have guys that historically would never look at anything outside of the state of Florida. I got them looking at all-age rental parks in North Carolina now. So it's really shifted. Cap rate expectations have changed a lot. With a show of hands, has anyone ever heard of Satsuma, Florida? Okay. We sold a 104-unit private utility 55 plus park there at a 4.5 cap on current numbers. Anyone ever heard of Midway, Tennessee? Okay. We sold a 108-unit all-age park there at a 7 cap on current numbers. I'd say this year our success has come from taking difficult deals that have been kind of passed along in an off-market situation where the owners have not gotten, there's more to it than just a rent roll and a P&L. We really dig in and learn the story and understand the park, broadly market it to everybody. I wish every deal was just I could just show my 5 best buddies and just kind of close it and work it off and market it, slam it off market, but that's not what our success has been built on. So it's that's kind of our sweet spot, taking a tough deal, learning the story, and finding that needle in the haystack buyer. Can you give a few ways to improve the marketability of your communities? These guys brought up great points. First thing is curb appeal. Simple stuff like skirting, signage, paving. Paving's more expensive, but it really gives a nice facelift to the park. Enforce rules. If you want to sell it, there should be no vacant homes. Fill up the vacant homes because it's hard to assign value to vacant sites and vacant homes. So it's important that you maintain the occupancy rates. Definitely to Cook's point here, have financials. We'll create it if we have to, but it makes it more difficult to sell. Tips to buy right now, be very aggressive, and you have to uncheck a couple of the boxes. You have to, again, we're all hammered with, I want a 10 cap and a major MSA with, owner financing and city utilities, and, that's what I refer to as a unicorn. So you you gotta get aggressive, you gotta uncheck at least a couple of those boxes and, show that you'll close the deal.
Thanks, Kevin. Enon Winkler, as a veteran of the brokers community living in Orlando, Florida, Enon joined MHRE in 2015, focusing on selling apartment communities in Florida and manufactured housing communities across the United States. Enon says that his clients recognize him as a broker who exceeds expectations and puts clients' needs first. As a diverse entrepreneur, Enon has built multiple businesses, including one of the top 10 Cold Stone Creamery franchises in the U.S., a social media company known as Red Carpet Monday, and other street ventures. Enon, it's all yours.
Thank you. So I joined MHRE at the beginning of 2016, actually, and we were having a big year. I know most of you in the audience, but I don't know you. Please feel free to come up and introduce yourself and check out our website, which is www.mhreinc.com. This year, we've done 27 transactions, a total of 10,387 sites, and $340 million in volume. We've sold deals in Alabama, Ohio, Florida, Michigan, Georgia, and Colorado thus far. Last year, I did 14 transactions for about $60 million, all throughout Florida, North Carolina, Georgia, and I believe we did one in Ohio. To get to the questions, what is your geographic focus and the size of deals that you've worked on the past 24 months? We don't really have a sweet spot with respect to the size of deals. It seems similar to Kevin that we get a lot of the harder deals to sell. And really the reason for that is because, again, it's all about creating the story and digging in to how to market the property. We've sold deals that have been $500,000 and we sold a portfolio that was $270 million this year. So, it's each transaction has a different story, and it's up to the broker to create the story. So we focus on anything pretty much $500,000 and up. The other thing I want to touch on is we have a national database as well. We're really focused on creating a national database, and that's extremely important because a lot of the buyers are coming from California, Colorado, Texas, moving to the Southeast, and a lot of Florida buyers are moving to Texas, Colorado. So having that database is one of the most important key factors to our success. What do buyers want in 2016 and how has this changed in the last 24 months? A lot of the guys up there made a lot of good points. What I would say is that we're seeing a lot more first-time buyers. And the challenge with that is you'll get a call, like they had mentioned, and you have a first-time buyer say, I'm looking for a cap rate. I'm going to be pretty blunt and say, I can't help you, And educating the first-time buyer is something that is really important because a lot of the guys out there have the financial ability to be able to buy parks, but they're really challenged on what their expectation is. So we're starting to see buyers' criteria wanting only wastewater or wanting only city water and sewer, transition into wastewater treatment plant, well, septic, and that's a reality of a lot of the first-time buyers, what type of parks you're going to buy. They touched on a lot of the other good points with respect to that, but what I will say, and I feel like it's starting to creep into the business here, is I am starting to see a little bit of a pullback on pricing, at least with what we're marketing. Before, we set cap rate records. I was part of Kevin's team when we did the 4.5 cap. I just did a 4.7 cap in Florida, but I am starting to see a pushback on the pricing right now, so just be aware of that if you're a seller. A lot of that has to do with interest rates and what's going to happen with the election. Can you give us a few examples of a way to improve your marketability of your communities? Buyers are emotional, so whenever buyers drive into your park, it's important that your parks do look good if you're getting ready to put on the market, that there is a curb appeal that is enhancing to them. That as buyers, when you pull into a community, it's very important the way the physical aesthetics look. And I would say that's the case with any buyers, especially first-time buyers, because they really don't understand what they're getting into. The other thing that I would say that's really important if you're thinking about selling your park, and let me ask you guys this question: how many in the audience have owned parks for more than 5 years? This is a common theme that I hear for people that own parks for a long period of time, is we've gotten to know the tenants and we feel bad about raising rents. I hear it all the time. If you want to sell your park, I'm telling you, you need to have a trend of rental increases, because if you don't, you're gonna leave meat on the bone, but they're not typically gonna pay you for that full meat on the bone. So raise your rents if you're thinking about selling your parks. And if you ask any of us here, we have told clients, before we can take this to market, we need to raise your rents. That happens on 3 out of every 7 deals that I bring to market, raise your rents. Other ways are get away from rentals, if you have rentals. You know, there are people out there who will buy rentals, but if your park's mainly a rental park, it's gonna be a lot tougher to sell than a lot rental park. So if you have the ability to sell some of these homes to your residents, ultimately I think it would create value because you're expanding your buyer pool. And then make sure your deal's stabilized and you have good records, which they all pointed out. It's extremely important that you have good records. I can create a rent roll if you wanna write it down, I can put it in Excel, not a problem, but the better record you have, the better it is, easier it is to finance and easier it is to sell. Any tips on being a successful buyer of a community amid all the buyers in today's competitive environments? You know, they touched on a lot of good things. But the one thing that I would encourage all of you to do is create a bio. Create a bio of why you're qualified to buy the park, talk about the history in which you've had success. And I think that really helps because whenever I'm presenting an offer to my seller, if I have a buyer or a bio and I have a proof of funds, I'm gonna ask for them anyway, but that's something that you should be presenting to all brokers up here as a bio and a proof of funds. You know, the other thing that I would say is don't retrade, and if you retrade, make sure it's a good reason. Listen, I'm gonna go over the numbers and I'm gonna go over your underwriting on every single deal. That's my fiduciary duty to my seller, and I'm gonna make sure that you understand what you're doing, and I'll help you if you don't. But if you come back and retrade me on the numbers, I'm gonna have an issue as a buyer the second time around. Sorry.
A lot of people may not know what retrade means.
Yeah, so a retrade is, let's say you offer $1 million for a park, and you know that you're really probably gonna come back and say, I want a $100,000 price reduction at some point. I'm fine with you coming back and asking for a reduction in the price if it's something that we did not know about, such as infrastructure, such as something we could not foresee. But if you come back and retrade me on the numbers after we went through the numbers, it's gonna create an issue. Because I'm gonna go through them with you thoroughly. So, and once you retrade, the rumors start flying that you're a buyer that retrades, and it's really hard to get a deal if you retrade. It's just being honest. The other thing I would say is if you want to be competitive with respect to all of us, be in our ear. We have buyers calling us every day saying, you know, we're new to the industry or we buy parks. The more you're in our ear, the more we will remember you when we have a park. Because typically when I list a park, I can name the top 5 buyers right off the top of my head. But if you're in my ear constantly, that gives you somewhat of a competitive advantage for me to remember you. Second thing is visit the property. You know, a lot of people make offers, they haven't visited the property. If you make a good offer, I'm going to tell you, we'll accept your LOI, but you got to come visit the property first. It kind of shows a little bit of unseriousness if you haven't visited the property. And finally, I would say, lean on us as brokers. We are a conduit for your success, from lawyers to insurance companies, to helping with appraisals, to helping with evaluations. I have several buyers, and there's a couple of you in the audience, on every single deal that you're going to put an offer in, you call me, and we go over your underwriting. And I tell you where I think you can add value, and I tell you where you're making a mistake. So lean on all of us as brokers. We're here to help you. And the more successful you are, the more successful we'll be.
Great, thanks, Enon. Okay, so those were just questions that were from past participants, but I'm sure that some of you have questions that you'd like answered.
What is a reasonable due diligence period? Not too long, not too short?
Depends on, in some ways, the size of the park. But I will tell you that a typical due diligence period is 30 days. But to be competitive, because you have competition, a lot of people will shorten on smaller parks to 15 days, 7 days. So I think as a buyer, you got to think about what your competition's going to do and how to be as aggressive as you can with being comfortable. Because I get it, you want to make sure you have time to do your due diligence. But if you're a first-time buyer compared to a seasoned buyer, it's just going to take you longer. But if you have a bio, a strong record, and you convince us that you're emotionally attached to the deal and you're a good buyer, that's a leg up for you. So 30 days is pretty typical in my world.
Yeah, I'd say that actually the average on a finance transaction maybe 30, or maybe like 45. As far as, I think 60, beyond 60, you're just unreasonable. Under 30 is pretty tight if you're actually going to finance it, because most people want to know they've got their bank and they know what they're going to be borrowing and know how much they need cash they need to close the transaction. And it will take a bank a lot of times 30 to 35 days just to give an answer on that. So,
We took on like the property versus the financing, so that way it kind of, I mean, the property
Sure.
would be different.
yeah, maybe I'm different from some other brokers. Sometimes you get a client that has a long financing contingency after the due diligence. I like those combined because I don't like to be tied up for 45 more days after they're done with property due diligence. So I just ask for an all-inclusive contingency period. People will back out during the financing contingency for any reason at all. They can always say the financing wasn't what they wanted. So total financing and due diligence period, probably 45 days is average.
I was going to say also, if you come in with $1 million deal under contract and you put up $1,000 in earnest money, you're going to be kind of, people are, I know it's refundable, but people don't know how to take you seriously. Yeah, so.
Lean on us to help you with that. I mean, our job is to make your offer as competitive as possible. So, I mean, every one of these guys are great brokers. Lean on us. We will help you write what we consider to be a fair offer with fair terms. And our goal is to help you is to get the transaction done and put the right person in place. Lean on us.
In your appraisals on mobile home parks, what is the most desirable space size?
On appraisals?
The space size, park space size, is it 50 by 120, is it?
Yeah, the bigger the better, right?
Yeah.
Lot size.
Lot
Size bigger the better.
Yeah, ability to accommodate a double wide is ideal.
It's ideal, but at least a big single wide, at least a big 16, 67.
If you could convert it to a land home package, it's typically more aggressive cap rate.
In Florida, we get stuck with a lot of deals where, they're older parks and, you're stuck putting a park model in instead of a mobile home, so that's a challenge.
Okay.
I have a question that was asked by somebody that couldn't attend, so I thought I'd ask it for him. Okay, you talk about marketability. Here's the situation. 165 space property, able to hold most big single wides. Occupancy, 40%. So we're 60% vacant, and they need to replace their septic system, probably with a sewage treatment plant. Obviously, you can't sell that on a cap rate. One is there any value left with those spaces, and are there buyers out there for something like this?
On the vacant spaces,
Well, for this property, 166 space, 40% occupied, the rest are empty spaces, haven't been filled, and the septic tanks eventually need to be replaced with a sewage treatment plant.
That's really market, I don't want to interrupt you guys, but that's typically market driven. Like if you're in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and you've got Clayton mobile home willing to pay for the lot rents that are empty, then, I mean, your value there is going to be much different than, say, Macon, Georgia. So
Okay, tertiary market, 80,000 people. There's no retailer going to put homes on this
the
property.
two examples I gave in the beginning here were about that situation where it was parks that had the ability to bring in homes. It's part of the story. I think it's difficult to underwrite, but it's part of the story. That's how we got to a 4.5 cap, and that's how we got to a 7 cap.
It'll drive down the cap rate. If again, it depends on the economy of the market, and depends on, I think, your alternative home or housing options. But if there's an infill story there, then yeah, certainly there's some value. Like you said, it'll just drive down the cap rate. Maybe a full 45 or 65 full site full park will be worth a 9 cap in the tertiary market, not 8, 9.
There's no cap right here, it's just making it expensive.
Right. Well, then,
And he has to have a buyer that's willing to go in and replace his septic system with a sewage treatment plant.
On this type of deal, the key, in my opinion, is you got to compartmentalize these issues. So, I mean, the park is obviously going to have income from what's full, and then you're going to have your expenses. The big hair on the deal is not the vacant spaces so much, because as we've learned from the conference, there's a lot of retailers and stuff out there, and there's a lot of programs that are helping people fill the homes. So there will be some value that people will put on that, though it won't be a lot. But the big hair on that deal is really compartmentalizing that issue of what it's going to take to get that wastewater treatment plant back online, and understanding how that's going to work, and getting them to understand there's going to be a discount for that. So in that type of situation, You really just gotta compartmentalize those issues and put a value on all of those, and then you gotta create a story around it.
So
So
each one of you could find a buyer for that type of property.
There would be multiple.
That was the question.
The challenge will also be just the financing as well. I mean, I've got a 209 space park right now that, you know, it's priced at an 8 cap, but the challenge is that the financing, a lot of banks are not willing to finance stuff at 40-50% occupancy. So that's going to vary a lot, and you guys maybe have a little more success than that.
On a side note, we launched the 207 site deal in Eastern Tennessee on Monday. That's under contract. Same thing, it's 50% full.
But it didn't need a new street treatment plan.
No.
the wastewater treatment plan on that deal will be an issue though, because the buyer pool on that will be very small, the financing will be very slim.
It's gonna be all cash.
Yeah,
I mean, it's gonna be an all cash deal, and there will be bidders, certainly. You just need to create a market for it. Any of us can get 3 or 4, 600 or 800 eyeballs on it, and there will be bids. There, you know, we'll get to a set of starting price most likely, and let the buyers really bid. But if you set it too high, they'll steer away everybody, and you won't have any bidders.
Steve, as an operator, David Kevan, Spencer, and you, who've done this for a long time, and you like that makes sense? Us. And to me,
You like to get into sewage, yeah, I would expect.
and for me as an operator, if someone that was selling a park like that had done some legwork and would tell me as a buyer, I've spoken to the municipality, here's what can be done, they have the capacity, and if the price is right, and if there is a need for people to be in that area,
Yeah.
it would excite the heck out of me as an operator.
100%.
Good answer.
Okay.
Great answer.
You all are involved in a lot of sales, and out of curiosity, how many, because a lot of the people who are selling are in their 70s, kids don't want the car. How many of those sellers are interested in doing owner financing?
I think that, again, you have to look at the story and where they're at. So I will tell you that a lot of the sellers initially are opposed to seller financing, but when you really dig in and understand their basis and their tax situation and educate them on why they should hold paper and the benefits of holding paper, they become more open to it. So it's really an educational process for them as to why they should do this. For example, we're selling a park in Oklahoma City right now where he's adamantly no on holding paper until we just had a tax conversation with his accountant, and he doesn't like to pay the taxes, he wants to defer the taxes, which all of them do, because the base is typically low. So it's really an educational process to them of showing them if they hold paper and what their net would be through holding paper, and making sure that you convince them that you have a qualified buyer with a good down payment that can operate that property, turn it around, or do whatever they need to do where they're not going to default. They're much more open to it when it comes to that. So it's an educational process to the seller.
So let me ask the question a different way.
Ask the question a different way. Out of 10 parks you sell, how many of them are owner financed?
More or less?
Mine are, because I work in secondary, tertiary markets, I'm typically seeing like 3, 4 out of 10.
We don't do a lot of owner financing, more institutional stuff. If you need me to owner finance one of the deals that we're selling, it's typically, there's a problem with the buyer actually. Yeah, but I'd say it depends on the market. I'm sure Max has a lot of owner finance deals because they're just not that financeable.
Well, and it depends on the age too, because a lot of the older guys, they do realize that there's a benefit to holding paper. And so it's, the older they are, typically the more often they will hold paper, and it's usually a tax issue, a deferment of tax.
Yeah, almost all the deals we're doing are finance.
That's one of the first questions I typically ask when I talk to the sellers, whether or not, what their opinion is about holding paper or owner financing. You know, a lot of times we try to go the local bank route, but it's a lot, obviously it's a lot easier for everybody if you carry paper, but again, go ahead.
It opens the buyer pool, for sure.
Yeah,
We try to see
strategy
that.
is so much easier, obviously.
Quick question over there.
Yeah, can you discuss factors as it pertains to park size and unit count? Are you seeing the more institutional crowd paying up for larger parks or portfolios?
Yeah,
In a lot of markets that I see, I mean, we've got a deal in Knoxville, it's under contract right now, and I mean, he's paying a 6.5 cap on a 140 space park. So I've never seen it that low typically. I don't work in the big institutional stuff, so I don't really see that much. I work mostly, like I said, secondary, tertiary, but usually on those types of deals, like from 30 to 80 spaces in the areas that I'm in, you're looking at anywhere, if it's an all lot rent deal. I mean, we've got a deal in Burlington, North Carolina that we, put under contract. Was it 8.5 cap, Glenn?
Yeah, we listed our first offer was 8.5.
Yeah, and that was a 54 space, all lot rent, 100% full. I don't know what kind of debt we have on it. We have a little more, but literally like something like that, that's typically gone in 24 hours.
And let me just touch on the question. I think a lot of, there's, when they ask how many sellers are out there, there's no hands, and then if you ask how many buyers, all the hands go up. I think what's really important as a buyer is knowing where you can play competitively and staying within that niche. I mean, I think that's really important. I mean, if you own 2 parks and your park's, 40 units and 100 units, and you're trying to buy a 300 unit park in a major MSA or right outside a major MSA, it's going to be extremely competitive, and you're probably wasting your time. So really understand what your niche is and where you're going to be competitive. It'll save you a lot of time.
You had mentioned on the low basis older seller and carrying paperback with regard to the tax consequences. We just went under contract on a deal where the seller indicated that he would be willing to take back paper until he talked to his accountant and tax prep folks. He'd been consistently 1031 exchanging properties over a series of years, and felt at least he's being advised that he could not carry paperback, or he would have the full consequences of basically zero basis property being taxed, on 100% of the sale price, and the taking paperback would have had a negative consequence because he wouldn't have the liquidity to pay the taxes that he might be faced with. And so it seems that you're contradicting that, based upon the carrying paperback may have a tax benefit, and just if you can expand on that.
So the biggest challenge with, and again, it's a lot of the guys that have 1031 over and over again, or they've owned the property for a long time, is their basis. And there's several ways to look at that, but with respect to their taxes and the accounting, maybe the accountant advised on the down payment to cover his taxes, therefore he's going to get cash flow. So there's a lot of different ways to look at that, but what I can tell you is that they really are fearful of just paying taxes. So you want to try to create an opportunity for them to be able to continue getting cash flow. But again, this situation may be different from someone else's, where their accountant is advising them against this, and obviously he's had a long history of 1031ing properties. So every situation is different. That's just one example of many that we've done.
May I step in? Let me explain one thing that occurred to me on a owner financing I did when I sold one of my parks. And it's not made clear when you talk about seller financing that you can defer the taxes. When you sell a property, you have 2 potential profits that you're trying to defer taxes on. The first is the gain of your property. So if you bought it for $1 million and you're selling it for $1.5 million, you have a $500,000 gain. That's the gain that you can mostly defer when you do owner financing when you sell the property. The other taxable event that occurs when you sell a property is you are recapturing your depreciation. So let's say you bought that $1 million property and $300,000 of it was land and $700,000 of it you've been depreciating. And so you've owned the property for 20 years or whatever. So you've depreciated it down to 0. Ask your accountant this, because nobody tells you this. When you sell, even when you sell for owner financing, you have to pay the taxes that year on your recapture of depreciation. Very few people recognize this, and I did not realize this until I was into my transaction, and we got enough down payment to cover that portion of the tax bill, but that portion of the tax bill was actually a greater tax bill than the gain we had in the property. So even though we did owner financing, of 80% of the property, we paid over 50% of the taxes that were due had we sold it for cash. Does everyone, so you ever follow that?
Some of these situations, it's $1 million and they're selling for $5 million.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, when if you buy it for $1 million, sell it for $5 million, your owner financing is more valuable because you're deferring the $4 million gain and only paying taxes on the $700,000. We were about even.
Right.
And then the other thing that hurts you is when you recapture depreciation, you pay a 25% tax rate, where your capital gains taxation is generally 20%, so it's actually a higher tax rate. So, I'm not an accountant. The recapture tax rate is 25, yes. I'm not an accountant, but I have had personal experience with these calculations.
And also add in that when you're repaying when you're going financing, you're deferring the capital gains, you're paying back with cheaper and cheaper dollars over time.
Right, and there's value, a lot of value to that.
I got a question over here, David, but I'm going to ask you guys a quick question, two things. It's related to the net income calculation you got for your cap rate sales. Are you most of the time putting capital reserves in there, which most of us don't, and also professional management fee of 3 to 5%? So every institutional guys are looking.
Every time.
Yeah, in our deals, we try to remove your capital expenses that you've actually been expensing. So if last year you did $10,000 worth of one-time upgrades to your buildings, we'll remove that and we'll replace that with a capital reserve account of $50, $75, or $100 a pad. And we use offsite management because these are institutional sized deals. Max's experience may be different though.
Well, I mean, typically on the mom and pop side, they will operate, the expense ratio will be closer to 65%, and we'll look at the maintenance, I'm like, it just says maintenance. And I have to dissect what the maintenance is and say, all right, well, we need to see the line items to figure out what is CapEx, what's operational expenses, and we just pick and choose which one. I mean, I'll disclose to the buyers up front, say, look, the expense ratio is really high on this, but here are all the CapEx, this is the reason why. And we try to educate the buyers, because I had a deal up in Warrenton, North Carolina. It was a small deal, about 60 pads, and that was the issue. He was operating at a 65% expense ratio, and you just had to educate the buyers, say, look, he's not going to be repaving the roads every year, and it's not his MO, so it's, once every 5 or 7 years, something to reseal or something along those lines.
Yeah, to Max's point, I mean, a lot of times you gotta go into repair and maintenance and kind of get a better handle on what's going on there. I've seen people categorize the purchase of homes, all kinds of off-the-wall stuff, so you really gotta get a better handle on what the non-recurring expenses are and isolate them.
Even on the income side, you got to see, because sometimes we'll do commissions. I know I've seen, there's a few people here that pay their people commissions, and they'll throw it into the income and say, oh, well, that's part of the income. Like, well, not really, because it doesn't happen every year. It's every once in every blue moon, you might sell a home. It just depends on really the velocity.
Yeah, that goes back to good bookkeeping. You want to have your lot rent and your different income streams broken into separate categories in your income on your P&L, so we can actually differentiate what's reoccurring and what's underwritable and what's one time on the income and the expense side.
A lot of times too is I'll actually get some vendors involved. It's a little bit more long-winded, but there's a trash renegotiating group down in Florida. I'll introduce them. If their trash expense looks a little high, or they're getting gouged by the local municipality, or it's not the municipality, the local private group, I'll try to put the vendors in there, and I'll try to get them to lower their expense ratio as best I can, because a lot of times a lot of people are getting taken advantage of by local vendors, and they've never really shopped around, so that's kind of the thing we try to do as well.
Yeah, I'm sure these guys are the same way, but I mean, we underwrite so many deals and we see so many deals that, I mean, I've just in the process of doing a BOV, I mean, we've identified leaks and stuff like that. So, I mean, we know the metrics and we can, the red flags jump out immediately.
Yeah. You guys do put reserves after you pull up capital expenses?
Yeah.
Okay. And then a lot of owners too won't put a management fee because they don't charge a management fee. Most buyers don't put a management fee in there. So if I come to you and I don't put a $20,000 management fee, just for example, and you cap that, I mean, the reality is I'm pushing the value of your property where someone is going to, all people are going to put that in for the most part. So our goal is to be extremely honest in our evaluation on what buyers are going to do, because we don't want to set expectations that waste anyone's time.
We have someone. Yeah, let's ask this question here.
All right.
Yeah.
I was going to say, we really follow whatever the bank is underwriting at. I'm always on the phone with American Commerce Bank or Clayton Bank, talking to Kevin Kimsey or Clint. I mean, Clint's here, I don't know where he's at, but we're always talking to them saying, look, where are you guys underwriting at? Because it's changing. They change, you know, I won't say regularly, but every month there's a little tweak to it. So I'm typically on the phone with the bankers to try and figure out how they're underwriting. That way I can adjust.
So my question circles back to what you were talking about as far as the tax consequences of some of those deals. And we've done Roth self-directed IRA money. And so my question to you, which avoids quite a bit of that, by the way, all of it. How many deals do you see non-recourse self-directed IRA type mobile home parks?
We've got one right now in Dothan that's set up that way, where it's all, I'd say 1 out of every 15 parks I'll see that's set up that way, but but the challenge is it's difficult to sell because you've got to educate a lot of the first-time buyers what it is, and a lot of times they're like, well, what's the Dodd-Frank Act? I mean, how's that going to come into play when I buy a park? Am I going to get taken down by the government as soon as so there's a lot of education. You
Just education though.
Yeah, so that makes it a little bit more difficult to sell, but it's definitely sellable.
More what I've seen though is when syndicators or guys go out there and raise money, the expansion of using IRA money, which is self-directed or whatever, is becoming a large part of their money-raising strategy, and it works. So it's, I'm seeing a lot of people like Jefferson Lilly that's here. Jefferson goes out and raises money for his deals, and I'm sure Jefferson uses a lot of self-directed IRA money that's put into his deals, so it's very beneficial for your IRA and for raising money for Jefferson, for example.
Last question. I'm sorry.
Quick question. What are you seeing in terms of the value of empty lots?
That's really market driven, like I said earlier. It depends on the area. But here, I mean, it's tough to say, Spencer. I mean, there's a lot, like some areas like here in Macon, Georgia, the value of the lots down there are going to be a lot different compared to Knoxville, Tennessee. Like I said earlier, Baton Rouge. I mean, it just depends on the local demand. But it's kind of hard to just say this is the general. But I'd say the cost would be low.
Why don't you, here's the thing I would do, we don't do a lot of vacancy, but if you've got a significant amount of vacancy and you've got a good market where those sites are fillable and there's actually demand for homes and you sell homes, what I would look at is what your sites are worth full. So you take the 60 sites that are full, look at the value of those, and you apply a fraction of the value of the full spaces to vacant spaces. So maybe a quarter, maybe a fifth of the full space value for the vacant spaces would be a good starting point. So if your sites, you know, I've sold sites for 80,000 space, I've sold sites for 15,000, 10,000 space. So that's why there's such a wide range. A $10,000 filled site, a vacant site is worth probably a donut. An $80,000 filled space, a vacant site's got some value.
Yeah.
Spencer, did you want to wrap up here? Don't forget to text in your comments on this.
Microphone.
David, I was going to introduce Chris nicely, but David Voss is rushing to catch a flight. How about if we do David Voss in this next panel and Chris after that?
Sure. Let's text your results on this panel, and then let's give them a round of applause.